I do the document report, you can catch me on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook. Facebook is probably the best place where you're fighting with it. I'm just learning how to do podcasting. I've been in radio for many, many years, and I'll tell you a story. The reason I'm here is because there's been a lot of fighting for this right here. The elections are rigged. I don't know if you believe it or not, but the elections are rigged. In 2020, when people would come up to me and tell me the elections are rigged, I would laugh at them. I would say, no, 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 we've got a lot of bias at the Secretary of State's office. Under this. And I can tell you right now, there was a whole bunch of voting below me. Our elections are rigged. And it's about time that we have people like Professor David Clements, people like Marty here, who've been working on this for many years, who know how to do this, who know how to work on this kind of, these kinds of things. So I'm your MC tonight, Rob Taylor. I want to welcome all the guests who traveled here. Thank you, Professor. We appreciate you coming all this way. Sam, Todd, thanks for completing. You know, the other yeah, you even you're the dog with a couple of I think if I was on stage, I'd be standing up right now. And I want to thank all of you for coming because there's a beautiful, beautiful drive over here. It's a beautiful day. I'm sure you have a lot of family things. Easter's coming up, spring is here. So you being here is the first step to actually taking some responsibility and taking this out. This is the important stuff. I want to tell you that, like I said, this is all about the elections for Rick. You're going to change that. You're going to change that in this state. And if we don't, I think there's someone in Washington, D.C. who might help us out. I think there are 12, at least a few of the Supreme Justices who would be willing to go our way. And so there's these top, the bottom up, the top down. So we've got a lot of things happening. Are you
There you go, much better.
I never sure because people always tell me I'm yelling, so it's hard to engage that. People go, what? No, I go, well, that is my inside voice. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And I apologize. I kind of showed up and I'm in flannels, but I thought, oh, it's not this county. It's like Queens County. It's flannel. That's not formal wear here. So, cut it out.
Yeah, well, he does have a suit jacket in the car, just in case.
I did have a suit jacket. And you know what? You cannot buy a suit jacket in Coos County. I don't know about Douglas County, but you actually have to drive in Jacques Payet up at Eugene in the mall, and you've got to buy off the rack. I mean, you know, it's I don't know where Ben gets his jackets, but I remember. Does he? Wow. I mean, it's really the only place you get Salvation Army. So that tells you about our economic situation in Coos County because years ago you could go to the store and there wasn't there was a Sears, all the major stores were there. The old buildings are still there. They're all dilapidated. They're secondhand stores now. So I don't know how your city's doing or your county's doing, but well, we're really trying hard to towing the road. And so that's why I'm glad you're all here today because this is very important. We've got to change the future of our country. We've got to change the system that has created the bad politicians who are running this country. They literally created them. They were not elected, they were selected. They were selected. This was not an election, and Oregon was the test subject about that. I could go on for days, but I don't have time because we got to get on to the implications. I always say we have to do every event. I make sure that they do a pledge and a prayer at the beginning of the event. I've never done an event that we haven't done that. And I'm going to continue that today. And I've got a special invocation coming up with Mr. Jeff Pascal. Pascal, you wrestle on this microphone. That's all right. Father,
want to ask you to grace us with presence tonight. Just pray a blessing over us. If we pray, you truly would uncover the darkness, and that you would truly unleash freedom to our people. Pray, Father, that those that have perpetrated evil in our state would actually have justice. Pray a blessing for truth, liberty, and all these things just flood down from heaven and cause it to stir just a revival process. Pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
I'm cheap. I only have 2 mics. So I have got on YouTube monetization. So as soon as I do, I get that first 10,000. You guys want to do the pledge? Todd, could you come up here and do the pledge for me? Yeah. I know I wasn't planning on it, but I wanted to put you on the spot. It's the only way I can do it. And we have a huge flag over here. You know, yeah, they look everywhere else except where I ain't no look. There's that flag. But okay.
To the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball.
I'm sorry. Like I said, I usually shout. I don't want to blow out this microphone. So we've got a lot of great speakers up right here. Our first speaker, she's running for Douglas County Commissioner. And we need some new commissioners. We need some new commissioners. I mean, it's always good to have that fresh blood in there to mix up the ballots. And she would definitely be a refreshing, something new to the Goose County Commission. Come on up here, Sam Frost. Give her a big hand. It's a test. It's a surprise test.
Hey, can everybody hear me? Just a little bit louder. I think we put it maybe closer to now. I'm running for county commissioner. I didn't anticipate this, but I think that God has called me here, and I think it's all Todd's fault. So, Chris, what I want is to have a thriving county again. I grew up here. I grew up here in Douglas County. My dad worked for Hammerson, the logging company. And in the 90s, you have no idea, the Huffman and Wright parties in the summertime, it was amazing. There were thousands and thousands of people there. Douglas County was thriving. There were no druggies that you had to deal with downtown. Hardly as much homeless. When I came back in 2016, it was changed. I'm so heartbroken to see what has happened to our thriving timber industry county. I'm absolutely heartbroken. I'm not going to put any fault or put any blame, but I think that if I follow what Trump is doing, he signed an executive order in March, I believe, of 2025. This was last year. That would actually bring more receipts for timber here in Douglas County. Yes, my opponent is taking credit for it because he says he's working with Congress, but it's not Congress. It's a literal executive order from Trump. I think a lot of people don't want to give credit to Trump. But I will play on those receipts. And once we get extra money coming in from A, tariffs, okay, B, our timber industry, which will be thriving in Oregon soon, I think we're going to be seeing a very good future. And I made a promise to reduce property taxes, and reduce income or wage taxes. To be honest, they are both unconstitutional. In fact, I would like to abolish them both, but we'll see what I can do. So I will not advocate for increasing any taxes at any point. We are at the precipice right now. It's hard for me to survive, let alone, everybody else. And you wonder why there's so many homeless individuals out there. Because they tax us to a breaking point and we just can't take it anymore. I also think that elections, as I ran for county clerk, as most of you know, are a definite county concern, even though some individuals don't think that they are a county concern. I think that me being county commissioner can change a lot about elections. Even though there are individuals in office that don't want to change elections, but I think it'll be easier for the method to go through and change elections. There won't be so much pushback, in other words. So, and I was just telling David Clements earlier that our election process, not even only here in Douglas County. So if you think going back to the 2024 election, you have 65,000 non-citizens that were found registered to vote in the state of Oregon. How many of those were Douglas County? Okay. Now you have 800,000 that are being purged from our voter rolls, right? They voted. And then also on top of that, you have Dr. Frank with his 105% of our eligible voters registered to vote. So, I mean, it's insane. I think we can win. If we win on elections, I think we can win on economy. Communication is a big one too. How many of you have been to a county commissioners meeting and wanted to bring up something or ask a question, and then you're turned down because it's not on the item agenda? So Article 1, Section 8 and Section 26 says that you have the right to speak up and you have a right to instruct your representatives. I will open up those county commissioners meetings to where you can ask questions and they will be answered right then and there. And if I can't answer them, I'll find a way to do it. So vote for me and let's south the throne.
Isn't this a beautiful building? Let's give a big hand to the brewery. What a beautiful building. How big are they? They have this huge flag over there. This is great. This is what I want to see when I come to a business. This is the kind of business that I feel friendly to, or it's friendly enough to bring your family to bring your friends to, and it's American made. I mean, I don't know when this building was made, but damn, this is some beautiful stuff. This is beautiful. What was Harrison's? How long were they here, you think? 70 years? So we've got kids in the street saying, you don't have a culture. Americans don't have a culture. We white people don't have a culture. You're freaking sitting under your culture. Give yourself a big hand for building Western civilization. If you don't know, I'm a troublemaker. I'm with a group also. I want to give them a shout out. We're the friends of the Phoenix County Republican Party. The reason we're the friends is because they don't want to play with us and they won't allow us to be PCPs. They have shut down the party and literally for 2 years have refused to take not one single PCP. We got people on the ballot and it took a court to get this guy to the meeting. How many people want to be PCP? What's our number one goal? Build the PCPs, the precincts. Why is all about creating the precincts again? Getting rid of centralized spending. And this is what they're fighting against, and this is what we're fighting for. And so don't forget that why you're here, because that's very important. But the friends of the Conservative Republican Party, let's call ourselves the Flockers. Yes, meet the Flocker. So I think you guys would like that. I've got a lady here who you all know her. I'm not going to introduce her. And if I sit here, I could go 5 minutes long of how many achievements she has done and all the incredible work that she's put into all of this movement. Her name is Michaela Hammerson. Oh, that's right.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm going to speak down here because the stairs are dangerous and I'm wearing very dangerous shoes. Thank you guys all for coming. Just a little bit about why we're here, how we got here. I got involved in the Douglas County Republicans after the 2020 election was stolen from Trump. I didn't know what to do. And so I reached out to my local party and I got involved. I figured out what a precinct committee person was. I didn't know what that was. And then I got on the board and then I became the vice chair of the Republican Party. And then the Republican Party turned on me and 5 other patriots and they kicked us out of the party. So I decided that's fine. I'm going to keep working because I know that our elections are not secure. And I know that we have elected officials that are not doing what we hired them to do. And so I started working on some other things. Some of the Roseburg 6 that are working with me have been working with an Edtl, unbeknownst to me because I didn't know who that guy was. But he had filed a lawsuit with Mark Gilman and Stephen Johnson and Terry Newcastle and my mother, Loretta Johnson. And that lawsuit sort of kicked things off in Oregon, where we really started digging in to try to expose what was going on with our elections. There was some really good discovery that we got in some of these early cases in Oregon, and we've been building on that. Here in Douglas County, we started filing petitions to hand count our votes here in Douglas County, because if you didn't know, Oregon state law allows you to count, sorry, that flipped out, allows you to count in 2 different ways. You can hand count or you can use the machine, or you can do both if you want to. But those are the 2 ways that you can. We have an executive order, some sort of administrative order from the Secretary of State right now saying that all of Oregon has to use the machines. That does not circumvent Oregon state law that allows hand counting. So we've been trying to hand count in Douglas County. We have now filed 7 petitions. All 7 petitions have been denied by our county clerk here in Roseburg. Dan Loomis has denied our right to circulate that petition. And so we're on round 7. We're in litigation with them right now. We just had a hearing on Friday, and I think it's going pretty well. All of the judges in Douglas County have recused themselves from this matter, so it's gone over to Joseph County, and they're pretty conservative there. So I'm very hopeful with that. In addition to that, I am also chief petitioner for End Vote by Mail with an Edtl right here. Stephen Johnson couldn't make it tonight, but he's our 3rd chief petitioner. And we are trying to get back to hand counting in person with ID, make election day a holiday, clean our voter rolls, literally every single thing. Every single thing that we need to take our state back. So thank you guys for being here. I'm going to give up the rest of my time because you guys want to hear this guy. David Clements is amazing and he is going to give you hope. Thank you.
Awesome. I read Hammerson because, well, I have no ads. I'm sorry, did I do that again?
Yeah, you're doing it again.
I used to be on the radio. And I had a radio show. I had a radio show for my own for 5 years. And I was on the radio for probably about 9 altogether with a co-host. And years before that, I got this young man elected to office. His name was David Ross Smith. I got him elected to office. And
How'd that
I
turn out?
found out, yeah, I didn't turn out so well. But then I found out he was doing some stuff. And I had left the Republican Party because I wanted to be neutral. I was not affiliated. I'm telling you this because of what Michaela was telling you. There are people who are practicing what the communists are practicing in Portland. And now in Tuesday, these people are in our party. I don't think it isn't happening because I lost a radio station. I had a friend who lost a newsletter. I had friends who were threatened. Businesses were threatened. The radio station was threatened to have its license pulled and be sued. So because that's not the important part. The important part is I got to meet these two people here. And from bad comes good, always. Those doors will open, welcome those doors, and embrace the unknown. Because that's all you really have. I mean, people always try to talk about control. Politicians, they're all about control, aren't they? Politicians, let me tell you something. You, I, everyone in this room, we're small, furry animals on a spinning rock that's orbiting a fireball. You tell me what control you have. None. It can all end, folks. And the principles that we stand for today, that's all we really got. So I hope you continue with this because I'm going to introduce a gentleman who I think has character, integrity, who's better than the person who's representing you for the county commission in Douglas County. I think you all deserve better. And that man, give me applause, Steve Hammerson.
Well, I'm glad I came up when the AC condenser or whatever that is came on because I can use my fireman voice. So I was only a volunteer firefighter for 2 months, so I shouldn't take too much credit for it. Everything that everybody's been saying so far is right on point. What we're experiencing as a group, and I think most of you guys know, is that we are essentially addressing major issues that need to be dealt with. And then once we bring light to them, bad things start happening to us, right? So, and I don't even need to explain it to you too much, because we have Trump, Charlie Kirk, many situations where we've seen someone trying to address a problem or bring light to a problem, and it's like you better be quiet or we're going to take care of you. So I feel like a recall and some stuff that we've gone through is pretty small potatoes compared to my prior referenced situations. But I'm running for county commissioner. I'm running against Chris Boyce. One of the main reasons I decided to run against Chris Boyce is I don't think he's a good dude. He has a lot of personal chaos in his life right now, which is all self-inflicted. But I have campaign promises that stem from things that Chris Boyce has done. So I'm not going to accept a raise. I'm not going to give myself a raise. I'm going to do term limits. So 3 terms max, that's it. Then I'll have to figure out what else I'm going to do with my life. I've seen the argument that they brought up in prior forums that it's kind of funny. They'll kind of pompously sit there and go, well, there's only 3 people on this stage that actually even know how to do this job. This job was intended to be a community rotation job. Being county commissioner means that somebody that represents the community needs to be in that seat that serves the interests of the community and not the interests of themselves. And I have seen with this man that there have been multiple occasions where he is self-serving. A lot of people don't understand what protect the taxpayer means, right? To me, protect the taxpayer means that anything that I do in my capacity as county commissioner that affects the taxpayer, I don't do the negative thing. I don't do the thing that costs more. I don't get a discount on my car. I don't expense my fuel in my personal plane. I don't, there's one situation that I saw where he paid $3,100 to his personal business. And so I'm like, oh, sweet. I go on Star, I verify it. Come to find out, it's legal to do that. If you have a justifiable reason, it's legal to do that. But me, I wouldn't do something like that because I'm taking money that somebody gave to me to run for office and I'm giving it to my personal business. That just doesn't make any sense. So I had to sit down with, and I'm gonna hurry up and finish because my wife was right about David Clements. I sat there yesterday morning for 50 minutes. And I only know it's exactly 50 minutes because I was like, I'm gonna video this thing. So I had to hold my cell phone out for 50 minutes straight. And I couldn't put it down. And every time I looked around, everybody in the room was riveted. So you guys are in for a treat. But just last point. I was sitting down with a fellow school board director. I've been on the Roseburg school board for about 3 years now. I was sitting down with him and he's like, man, you need like a minute-long elevator pitch. And I said, okay, I'll work on that. He's like, but the real problem that I see is what's the difference between you and Chris Boyce? You guys are both on paper, you're both Christian men. On paper, you're both Republicans. I thought about it for a second and I said, the main difference between me and Chris Boyce is that, or I didn't say it that way, I said, this is your choice. You can either choose someone that knows right and wrong, and even if making the right decision means personal sacrifice and personal hardship, they'll make that decision. Or you can choose somebody that'll go to their lawyer and ask, is it legal? Is it legal to go do this? And if his lawyer says yes, then he'll go do it. If his lawyer says no, he probably won't go do it. I don't know. I don't have any receipts for that stuff yet. From the behavior that I've seen so far, I have a lack of trust. So, and last campaign promise is I'm going to put a live stream camera in my office, my county clerk office or county commissioner office, so that you can watch me at work every single day. Because I think the taxpayer is owed that. I think we should be able to hop on and look at each one of our senators, representatives, clerks, everyone, and be able to hop on at any point in the day and see exactly what they're doing, exactly who they're talking to. So I'm going to cut it off at that. I don't know if I'm at time or not, but I'm going to cut it off at that. If anybody wants to talk to me, I know we have Tammy all the way out from Lebanon. That was a long drive, so we appreciate you. But yeah, where from? Came from where? Oh, okay. Well, what was the? Oh, Q&A. Do I have time for Q&A?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for that because
Steve,
that's you gotta know.
Steve, can you repeat the question so that?
Oh yeah, I'll repeat the question. Is there any way that we could see Chris Boyce and me in a debate? So in Reedsport, yes, and actually one of my taglines is Douglas County deserves better, so I agree with you. So April 16th, Reedsport, they're doing the Rotary debate. April 23rd is the League of Women Voters. That's at Douglas County Fairgrounds. And then the final one is RUCPAC debate the day after. Right, so April 23rd and April 24th. But I will warn you, I don't think they're going to show up for the RUCPAC one. But Tim Freeman did last time in 2022, but the other two didn't show up. So I don't think they're going to show up for that. And then the real tell is League of Women Voters. I think that's the one that's published that stays online forever. So yeah. Go ahead. Oh no problem. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, and also you can look at the past debates. So, like, that's why I like the League of Women Voters, even though they're a liberal organization and Ben's mom is associated with them and all that. That's what I call out mom. Yeah, you can go online on YouTube on League of Women Voters, and I think there's 2 or 3 different prior debates that I know Boyce has been in because I watched them. You know, it's kind of I got some of my information of like his opinions on the economy. Let's not bring any new jobs or businesses here. Oh yeah, that was an attack point that I had with him. It's just like if you're not growing, you're dying. So. But yeah, go on YouTube, League of Women Voters, and you can see past debates and learn about him. You can't learn about me because it's my first rodeo, right? Well, kind of. Okay,
Outside of school.
I'm done.
This phone and microphone.
This phone. Oh, I gotta get this mic up here. I feel like a rapper. My rapper name is gonna be Pink Lemonade. Vanilla Ice was taken. We got a senator, I'm county commissioner in our county. His name's John Sweet. How many of you are, any of you here, 86 years old or older? Nobody. This guy is 86 years old and he's running again. And the last thing that he did when I was in a meeting was give $200 to an all ages drag show. That tells you how far this county has gone when the 86-year-old Republican is voting to give our tax dollars, to put our name on an all ages drag show. That happened. That was real. And that's why I'm doing this. I've got a granddaughter, and I do not want to see her exposed to the garbage that's being pushed by the other side. And I think it's something we have a right to as parents. And somebody who knows all about this, somebody who knows about being loyal to the right people, his friends, the people who are on the right side, a person who's taken the slings and arrows nonstop. I know this, I'm friends with him on Twitter, on X. And boy, we do a lot of battling up there. You almost get off of Twitter and you feel like one of them Roman soldiers. Oh my gosh, they're just too much. I had to think and actually debate with people. This guy knows how to do it, and he does it with flair. He does it with style. You're in a treat right now. You're going to get a real treat. Welcome to the stage. Big applause for Ben Edtl. Ben, come on. Talk about my mom. Hold on. Dude, I'm not a lefty. Hey, my clock hasn't started ticking yet.
No, we're not really timing.
Who's Hammerson? Who's Steve Hammerson? Hey, Steve. Instead of challenging Chris Boyce to a debate, I think you should challenge him to a duel. What do you think about that? Is it? There we go. It's not a joke. My name's Ben Edtl. I'm just a fighter. I'm not much of a politician. Get that pretty much figured out as soon as you speak. And I'm from Portland. And I'm taking a lot of grief for being down here in Roseburg and causing trouble, right? And there's a reason I'm here. There's a reason I've been here. And that reason started, when a radio guy was asking a senator a few basic questions, like, where do you get your money? But he already knew where he got his money. He got his money from the CCP. And that senator, David Brock Smith, is a guy who's donated 85% of all his campaign donations to other Republicans across the state of Oregon. He's the single largest donor in the caucus in both houses, Senate and House. And Ron Taylor, for asking those questions, was thrown off the radio. And he was thrown off the radio because he had courage. But the people that own the radio station did not have courage. The bottom line is that people don't follow titles, they follow courage. And the fact that you're here in this room doing something, taking action, saying, I'm going to gather, I'm going to go like they did in 1774 and 1775, where they met up and they organized and they collected themselves and they had freedom of speech. And they used that speech. And it's going to take a little more than speech to get us out of the mess that we're in. Because when the Republicans are owned by the CCP and the Democrats are owned by the CCP, what are we? There's some kids here, so I won't say the word, but it starts with an F and it ends with an ED. Right? That's what we are. No, we're not. That's the good part. So, anyway, I got involved at that point because someone called me up and said, you know what they're doing to Rob Taylor? I said, no, I don't. And I got involved. And then I got to meet Michaela, and I found out what the Douglas County CCP was doing to her. Right? The Roseburg 6, long live the Roseburg 6. They stood up and they faced every single elected official from the district attorney to the senator. The damn Loomis. The good. Everybody signed a document and they made it public and they said, recall these 6 people from their positions. Why? Because they're supporting a candidate who's challenging that very senator in a primary race. How dare they? How dare they? And that man was Todd Vaughn. Todd Vaughn has courage. There's more about Todd Vaughn as we move on through this. But I watched 6 people with the police and the circus, and I was partly responsible for the circus. We brought a bunch of people down. We made a big deal out of it. But they walked into that packed room facing hundreds of people that hated them falsely. And they stood there and they took the recall like heroes. They didn't run away. They didn't cower in the corner. They stood up there and they took it. And what they showed everybody in that room full of cowards, they showed them what courage is. And that's why they hated him even more after that. But here's the funny part. The funny part is that there's this district, this small little district called the Umpqua Public Transit District. And that's your transportation services. It's a government agency funded by the state, funded by the federal government. Now, that district was facing an insolvency event. Total chaos. It was going to crash. And all the bus services in Roseburg and beyond that would have gone down. And the board members started jumping off the board because they would be held responsible for wrecking that district. And Michaela Hammerson was elected to that board, so she was on that board. And as they jumped off, they made her the chair of the board. And as they jumped off, the Roseburg 6 were kind of out of the job. And we thought, well, this is great timing. Let's make the Roseburg 6 people board members of the transit district. Let's take this hit. And it was a burning hill. It was a burning hill. But it was a hill. We had courage. We took the hill. And we knew that we took the hill that's right up Demon Glass Smith's ass. And we went up it. We hiked right up his ass. And we built a fire, and we roasted s'mores. It became a huge irritation. And you know what else we did that was even worse than that? We saved the district. When I became CEO of that district, we were 2 weeks away from an insolvency event. And we got the money. And within 3 months, we solved years and years and years of chronic compliance issues. We did it in 3 to 4 months. And then after that 3 to 4 months, oh shoot, see, I told you. After 3 to 4 months after that, we saved the taxpayer $600,000 every budget. Just cutting a couple of things out of the budget. Mechanics, fuel. I didn't get started yet with the fraud, waste, and abuse. And then the May special election happened. And in that May special election, everybody on the board knew that they weren't going to win their race because they were going to rig the election. And I knew they were going to rig the election because I think they rigged Todd Vaughn's election when he ran against David Brass-Smith. And we all thought they did that because of weird things occurred. But what happened is that Todd Vaughn actually won his election. He won his race. Congratulations, Todd Vaughn. You won the race. This is killing me because it's barely working. Can you see me okay? That's going to test me. But let me tell you this. I got I have 2 more minutes. Is that okay, Clements? All right. That's it. There we go. So, anyway, Tom wins his race. Okay? He wins the race. He wins the race by 95 votes. And then the county clerk, the fixer, he says, you know, I did something I've never done before in my entire career as a county clerk. I'm going to go on an 8-day reporting blackout. All right? So we're going to go count ballots after Election Day for 8 days. And we're not going to report every single day how many ballots we count. Or how many ballots we throw away and don't count. And in that 8 days, something miraculous happened. 48% of the total returns, meaning the total ballots that were cast in that race, 48% were counted after Election Day. After Election Day. Our Constitution says we have an election day. We don't have an election week. We don't have an election month. We have an election day. Unless you're Dan Lucas. Unless you're these guys that control our government. And then Todd Vaughn lost. But what Todd Vaughn did after that, actually what I did after that, no, what Todd Vaughn did after that, Todd Vaughn put everything he's ever worked for in his whole life, his entire life worth, as far as his physical things, because his life worth is worth more than any of that. And he put it on the line because when you file a lawsuit in Oregon for an election claim and you lose, they can come after you for attorney's fees. And he stood up. His wife, and him, and his family, they stood up and they said, I'm not going to let this happen anymore. I'm going to put everything I've worked for on the line for this. Everything. This isn't the guy, this isn't the founder of Starbucks, okay? He's worked hard. Just like you, just like me, just like all of us, to earn what he's earned. That piece of land in Tiller. But he put it on the line for you. He put it on the line for everybody in this town and everybody in this state that doesn't even know his name. Because he filed a lawsuit. Challenge. Right? Now, as CEO of that district, I did something that also has never been done before. As an official government agent, a government official, I was the first government official in the state of Oregon, in the history of the state of Oregon, to refuse to certify an election. There's a lot of people in this state, a lot of people who hold positions of power, commissioners and legislators, very important people that understand three-dimensional chess. But not one of them has done a fucking thing about it. That's the only one I'm going to drop. Because I want you to remember what I just said. Not one has done anything about it. And ID 37 does something about it. When I was the CEO of that district, the district right here in your town, I did something about it. And I'm under investigation from the Secretary of State. They took all the money out of my family's bank account, $35,000 total, without due process, without a cause, without warning, without a letter. They destroyed me. They came back after the fact, after they pushed me out of this office, they came back and they made a false report and they sent it to the media before they sent it to the board so they could destroy my reputation and change the real truth about what happened in Roseburg. And if you think I'm passionate about it, I am. Because we're willing to put everything on the line for our country. This isn't about Oregon. This isn't about Roseburg. This isn't about a transportation district. This is about the future of the United States of America. Okay. You have to go to the lengths that I've gone, but you have to do something. You have to get involved. You have to go take those entries and get your neighbors to sign an entry. We got 65 days to put IP 37 on the ballot. You know what? How many people here think you can vote your way out of the rigged election system? Yeah, none of us, right? But here's what we can do. We can put this on the ballot. If we want to, we can put this on the ballot, whether it's by writing a check or whether it's getting the signatures. We can put this on the ballot and we can make a statement. We can make a statement because that's what we can do. And we can make them argue and make them defend their election system. And we know they're not going to defend the election system. You know why? Because they can't. They can't defend it. It's indefensible. It's a rigged system. So we can end it. We can put it up and we can fight for it and we can stand up for something because if you stand for nothing, we'll fall for anything.
It's not built that way. We lose our mic?
All right, I'll take this back. All right. You're honestly, you know, we're going. Um, let me see. You're on time almost. You're almost on time. You didn't get there. I don't think I'm on time once. I know. I'm impressed with that. You know the nice thing about this is that the past 4 years, 2 years, the last 2 years of my radio show and the last couple of years afterwards, I became to meet some really cool people. I get to go shooting for the house in Phoenix County. Yeah, I mean, you know, we've done a lot of really cool stuff. Basically, the fathers. And that's the Friends of Phoenix County Republicans. I'm not messing over there. That's FOCCRS. And we plan to take this as far as, you know, and we just had a court case this county before we had an election court case, election integrity court case. You're gonna love this, the judge, this, and I'm just paraphrasing, but he basically said, you're gonna lose the case because we can't rerun the election and get the same results as we did last time. That means that there's something funny going on in our elections because it's math, folks. It's adding and subtracting. It's simple arithmetic. And if they can't get the same results by running the same ballots, doesn't that give you all cause for alarm? And the judge said this. We were talking about this. I'm going to get that on audio because I think that's something we really need to start pushing out. The judge said because the result, you lose the case. Crazy stuff. It's a long story. I don't want to get into it because this next gentleman, it's me too. Glad you're here. And I've seen a lot of videos of you. I watch a lot of you. I see a lot of Dr. Frank, and it's one of the professors. I like that cool college professor I had back in the 80s. That's wow. We'll go light up a duty or something later. I don't know. Those are the days. Remember those? And but this gentleman, I'm excited because I'm going to sit down here and I'm going to shut my mouth and listen because I have been guaranteed he is going to red pill us. And I love taking the trip. So, David Clements, Professor David Clements, would you go on? Yeah, it's a trip. Yeah, a sobriety test. It's a tough one. I'm standing up here trying to get the feedback, and I'm going to proudly display this Pendleton because I'm a bit of a history buff, and I know that the founding plays in many pubs. And if you're going to invite me to
distillery beer place, I'm gonna have a drink. I do a drink. This is the 8th day that I've been on the road this tour, 6 events, and I'm in 49 states. And everywhere but West Virginia, preaching the hot gospel, including what's on that poster that our elections are rigged. And I want to change things up a little bit because I don't like giving the same talk each night. So I hope I don't disappoint with the high praise that I've seen from the last 2 events. But we can get to things that you're curious about on a Q&A. Who here doesn't know who I am? And that's fine. I can hurt my feelings. You can Google my name and figure out that I'm a nobody now. That wasn't always the case. Clip notes background for me was I was a long-time prosecutor. 8 first-degree murder convictions, helped take down a drug trafficking organization. Was a prosecutor of the year. So when people got like their head cut off, I'd be called to a crime scene and look around and we tried to catch the bad guys. And I was really good at it. But it almost wrecked my marriage because that kind of job you're married to. If you ever seen the show Breaking Bad, that's kind of what I did for a living on the prosecution side. And then I got my dream job. I got to be a law professor at my alma mater. It's not Harvard, it's New Mexico State University. And I got to teach kids, your young people, about the law. And I loved it. I'm telling you, I love that job. The stakes were so low. The only thing I had to worry about wasn't about some criminal getting away with murder. It was about a student that was displeased about their grade. That's pretty low job stress. But then 2020 happened. Everything changed. And it's as if I was put on this earth to see the problem clearly. And it wasn't abstract for me what happened with COVID. After you go after real criminals, you start seeing evil. I saw it everywhere. But boy, the COVID stuff was more evil than anything I'd ever experienced. And one of the subjects that I taught at the university was consumer protection law. So I was a subject matter expert in all things VAERS data, how to hold the government accountable. And I won a lot of awards, teaching excellence awards. And at some point, I made a decision that I wasn't going to wear that damn mask. I wasn't going to get jabbed. I wasn't going to force anyone else in my class to wear a mask, get jabbed. And I just fought the university. So even before you've heard about me with respect to the elections, giant bullseye. And I went under the radar because your MC's right. I kind of do look like the 1980s professor that you spoke to me with. And but I can assure you, I'm right of Attila the Hun. I'm as conservative as it gets. But it let me infiltrate a lot of different leftist groups. So when my university decided to come up with a memorial that labeled my university as founded on institutional racism. By the way, my university was founded after the Civil War. I was the only faculty senator in the university to vote against it, which by definition made me a pro-racist, discriminatory professor. So I've been fighting this fight for a long time. So what we're going to change it up a little bit is, I was in the car late night with Ben and Steve, and we were talking about all of the deep state stories that I've had to encounter. And then we got around to January 6th, 2021, and I said I had a supernatural experience that day. And they wanted to hear about it, and I said no. So I decided I'm gonna tell you something that not many people know. And we're gonna hear it tonight. Is that all right with you? This is special. It's Sunday. We're going to church. Got my whiskey.
But if you want to know the real story on why I'm here, you're going to hear it tonight. So with the backdrop that I just gave you, there was a time that I was very much well-liked, respected, appreciated. 2020 happens, and all of a sudden, I am persona non grata. I am Al Rotten Potato. I'm cooked. And so November 3rd happens, and I see all of these things that I can't understand, at least not initially, but I know it's wrong. Because no one here has ever experienced an election like November 3rd, 2020. I don't care who you are. And our wife's stressed. I'm stressed. Because if we don't solve this at the university that I'm at, I'm being compelled to call people they, them. I'm going into courtrooms and the judge telling me that I've got to respect someone's pronouns, and I'm sitting there, if Trump doesn't stick around, it's over. And I don't want to work at the university with a bunch of brainwashed kids calling a he, a she, and a she. Don't want to do it. I didn't sign up for that. So we're desperately tracking the lawsuits, one after the other. And then nothing works. No one has standing. Every case gets punted. So January 6th was a big deal, especially for lawyers that were tracking lawsuits. And there was this thought that Ted Cruz was going to give us 10 days to have things kicked back to the state legislatures, or we could have a thorough understanding of the fraud with the idea that state legislatures would probably back off and let's slow down a bit. Let's not rubber stamp fraud. And so that was a big day. But what happened? As soon as we had one state, U.S. representative and one senator object, which we need in order to challenge the slate of electors, there's a breach. Isn't that odd? As soon as they had a rep and a senator, we had the breach of the Capitol. And by breach, the doors opened from the inside out. It's a false flag. So as this is unraveling in my spirit, I'm sitting there going, oh no, oh no. Fix is in. And in your spirit, you knew it was all tainted, gross. There goes our chance. 2 hours later, our Congress reconvenes, not to pursue the people's business, but to gaslight me and say, based on what we just saw through our own false flag that we created, we need to move on. We need to certify Kelly Loeffler, traitor. Mitt Romney, traitor. Mitch McConnell, traitor. And they all had their masks on. It was demonic. And so we're watching this, and we had some hope. Because I thought for sure we were going to get Trump back in somehow within weeks. That was my prayer anyway. Were you praying for the same things? No. And my wife just started weeping, watching it on C-SPAN. And it was bad. Because I know the law. And I can tell you right now, the law wasn't going to save our country. I know the Constitution. The Constitution wasn't going to save our country. I know Donald Trump. Donald Trump wasn't going to save our country. So I went from being a pretty optimistic guy to having zero hope. And by zero hope, I mean, I couldn't summon up words to comfort my wife. So my wife's crying. We're at our cabin out in the woods. And my 2-year-old at the time, he was now 8, but he was 2, sees my wife crying, and he goes, "It's okay, Mama. I'm sad. I'm sad." Oh, she's sad. You want to see a broken heart? And my 2 other children huddle around my wife, and I go out the door. I start walking behind my cabin. I'm looking up at a full moon, and I look through the window, which is backlit. They brought a blanket over my wife, and what I recall is it looked a lot like a pathetic nativity scene shining through. And I've probably never been so, I don't know what the word is, because I never experienced it before. I've gone through some ups and downs as a prosecutor, dry heaving in a wastebasket because I don't think I've got what it takes to win a case, but this is beyond me. So I start praying. Please, God, save our country. And I said it over and over and over. I was right next to a fire pit. And I dropped to my knees and I'm still praying. And I'm crying. I know the weight of what's going on. And that fire pit was an altar. You can create an altar. And then I started praying for something I've never prayed for in my life. Because I was a Presbyterian. And Presbyterians, we don't believe in spiritual gifts. We're known as the frozen chosen. So if you have gospel music on, we clap out of time, we sing out of key. It's not just Methodist. We write the books, you at least do something. But that's not where I'm from. I was a Christian believer, but I've never seen a miracle. I've never seen anything supernatural, anything remotely close to it. So I say, Lord, please send your angels. Set a hedge of protection around my family, which might be normal for you, but for me, it's like I used to make fun of the guys that prayed those prayers. I'm desperate. I got no ego left. We're done. And on my knees, I'm praying. I just ask for angels, and out of the corner of my eye, I see what looks like a spider web. But it's not a spider web. It's a gossamer thread. That was the word that came to me, gossamer. Weeks later, I looked up the word and didn't know what it meant, but it was a gossamer thread. And it went up and up and up. So tall, I had to stand up and back away. And what I found is it traced an outline of a figure. And 2 feet to the right of that figure was another gossamer threaded outline. And I'm not here to tell you I saw angels, because I can't tell you I did. I prayed for angels, and I had 2 20-foot figures outlined. And at this point, I'm just staring. Because I don't know what I'm seeing. It's like watching that movie, The Predator, where the monster's boring in with the jungle. I wasn't scared, but I'm just staring. And not a big Bible reader at the time, which might surprise you. But I wasn't. And I started getting these downloads of scriptural verses about encounters with angels. And you'll notice that, with the exception of Mary, almost every single encounter leaves the person who's being visited with one of 2 reactions. One is they fell over as if struck dead, or they start worshiping the angel and they're told to stop. So I think in God's mercy, he's like, okay, for what I've got for you, you're no good to me. Struck as if dead. We don't need to worship. But I got that like a split second. Like this understanding. It's like seeing flashes. And then I didn't hear an audible voice, but something spoke to my heart as if someone was whispering. And that night, I believe I was filled with the Holy Spirit. And there's different denominational understandings about baptism. I think there are 2 baptisms. There is the baptism by water through the profession of faith, and then there's the baptism by the Holy Spirit. And of the 2, the second is what compels you to move. You've got no choice. There's lots of people going to heaven that don't move. They're baptized, got the right words, but they don't do anything. So I'm filled with this hope, this love, this euphoria that I've never felt in my life as a believer. I was encountering the presence of God through whatever it is that I encountered that night, and it was the best thing that I'd ever felt in my life. And I've had a rocky background, punk rock kid, self-induced cardiac arrest, drug use, had a heart attack, hard life, dysfunctional. And the love that I felt was greater than anything that the world had to offer. And I've been chasing that feeling I had that night ever since. So if you want to know why I go to 49 states, because I want to get closer to the presence. Why I'm here today, because I want to get closer to the presence. That's why. Second thing, I'm not going to share with you because it's personal. I felt things were revealed. But what I can tell you is, before I left that encounter with my gospel-threaded outlines, in the direction of these two figures, I heard in my spirit, do not worry. We are going to win. So John, when you sat down, do you think what you shared yesterday is going to happen? Right? That was the idea. This is the real answer. Why? I don't think we're going to win. I know we're going to win. I know. My wife's calling. She is. I'll call her back. Well, it's interesting enough. So I start backing away from the outlines. 10 feet. Anything else? Back up another 10 feet. Anything else? Keep backing up until I get to the cabin door. Well, let me remind you, I walked out hopeless. And now I am so hopeful, I got to get on it. I have a choice. And I'm happy. I got the joy of the Lord. And I fling open the door. I see Erin there covered in a blanket with the kids huddled around her, tears on her face, and I say, do not worry. We are going to win. And she looked at me like I lost my mind. That's okay. I didn't care what anyone thought at that point. I'm calling Patriots and I'm talking for a decade. Did you see what happened? Did you see what they did to our country? We got to get together. We got to figure this out. We got to fight. And I made call after call after call. And at some point, my wife comes out. Do you realize what time it is? No, what time is it? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, who cares? No one's sleeping. Everyone's heart's broken right now. If they're on the phone, they're lying in bed wondering what the hell happened. Ben Edtl's in a coffee roaster, considering suicide because of what he's seen. I know what attacked into that night. So the reason why I'm in this fight is not because I'm a law professor or was. That was taken from me. I'm on this fight because I'm a trial attorney that's done big cases. Because the prosecutors I worked with turned their backs on me when I got into this fight. I'm here tonight, I'm here in this fight because I saw gossamer threaded outlines. And if you put a gun to my head, I would not recant. So let's talk about something that's more relevant to you, not me. What's real to me? That's why I'm here. This is an amazing effort. Ending vote by, because it's a big deal in Oregon. It's a big place. It's a big thing in any place that has this type of fraud, this vector of fraud. So keep doing what you're doing. I don't have any technical advice for you. Just keep doing what you're doing because God's going to meet you in the middle. So here's the hopium for you. This is what I shared yesterday. I'll give you the condensed version because I don't know how much time we got. But we have all undergone an invasion, real or otherwise, at the border. People showed up, weren't invited, they trespassed. 10 to 20 million. They went to the DMV because they wanted some form of gainful employment, some screening to get a job. They were added to the voter rolls because under the law they had to be. Their citizenship was not vetted because the law also granted. So you don't need to worry about illegal aliens of voting in your elections. They're not. But a ballot is being created assigned to their voter ID. You've got a credit line of nearly 20 million that can be deposited in drop boxes without chain of custody. So you want to tell me this isn't important? This is huge. So in order for Trump to succeed, if he's following this plan, he's got to follow in the footsteps of Abraham Lincoln. People are like, is there any precedent for what I'm talking about? Yes, we got to go all the way back to Lincoln. And what did Lincoln experience? An uprising, rebellion. The entire Confederacy was a rebellion. And because the United States was so fractured, he didn't have a Congress he could rely on. He didn't have the votes. But he had to quell that rebellion. He had to put it down to save the Constitution, save the country. And some would say he violated the Constitution in order to do so. I don't think you would disagree with that. Fast forward to 2026, do we have a Congress that's working with the president? No. Do we have a Supreme Court? No. So what happened back in the time? He decided to suspend the writ of habeas corpus, basically stripping away due process rights of Confederate rebels, which is a power that's reserved to Congress, not the executive, but he did it anyway. The Supreme Court ruled against him, said you can't do that. He did it anyway. So when Trump tells you there will be voter ID this year, there will be no mail-in ballots, with the exception of the military, and he says it will be this way this year, even if Congress wants to fight about it. How does he make that promise true? He's looking at what Lincoln did. He's anticipating Congress defying his agenda. And it looks like John Thune and every Republican is doing just that. He's anticipating your Supreme Court justices losing their spine. That's why I just called out Neil Gorsuch and Tony Barrett for ruling against him in tariffs. So if you don't have eyes that can see, you're sitting there going, well, he doesn't have a chance. He doesn't. We're not going to get the Save America Act passed. Not through traitors, he's not, but he knows that. And we think this guy's being led by the nose. He is so far ahead, folks. So far ahead. Because when he tells you you're going to have voter ID, you're not going to have manual ballots. When he has an executive order that basically tells you you're not going to have the rigged machines, that's coming up next. How does he achieve it lawfully, constitutionally? It's by taking his mantle as commander-in-chief through national security power, Article 2 power. Which brings me to the next case, which is the Youngstown Still case. This is an important case, late 40s, which defines the war powers of the president. Cliff notes, easy. The president works in Congress, he's very powerful. Where Congress is silent, his power is iffy. And when they fight against one another, his power is at its lowest ebb. And he's telling you right now, Congress and I are in a fight. So how in the world does he maintain his authority? And so he's got to look at everything that we're dealing with as a rebellion, as an invasion, as an insurrection. And that's exactly what he's done. He's seen a digital rebellion in the code, in the election code. He sees the problem clearly. So, do we have any proof that he is doing more than just reading the same cases I'm reading? I think so. He's deployed 600 JAG officers throughout the country under the auspices of helping with immigration law. You don't need JAG officers to do immigration law. They do court martials. He swore in 20 in DC under the auspices of helping with petty crime. You don't have JAG officers do petty crime in DC. You have graduating law students do that. As a prosecutor, that's how you train them up. What else has he done? He triggered continuity of government. on April 1st, 20. And a lot of people don't know what that means, but he kept pointing to this immigration chart that saved his life, he says. That chart saved my life. Even when he was shot in Butler, he was pointing to an immigration chart that none of you want to read. In the bottom right corner, it says on this date, April 1st, 2020, Trump leaves office. Don't believe it? Take it up with him. And then he flat out said it, because when he was on stage at the RNC, talking about how God saved his life so he could save the country, with the bandage on his ear, that same chart was on about 20 big screen TVs, has the same note in the bottom right corner, Trump leaves office. He said, oh, by the way, I left office that week. And I'm sitting here going, did y'all hear that? You hear all these Republicans completely, like, they didn't hear it. Like, did you hear what he said? Because if you haven't thought through it, that means either he's crazy, lying, or he is exactly what he's telling you. He left office. Now, I know what you're thinking. You saw him serve out the rest of his term. Just like I did. I saw him walk away. I saw him pay his respects at the Alamo before they handed the keys to the White House to the usurper. So the question is, can you be the commander in chief, but not the president? And the answer is yes, you can. He ceased being the president. You know, he still had the term, and became the commander in chief and started working with the military. And the military knew what was about to happen because an ultimatum was given. And the military was preparing Trump for a long time. In fact, as soon as he got in office, probably before he got in office, the first term. Because what did you have right out of the gates? Crossfire hurricane, Mueller hoax, impeachment 1, impeachment 2. Treason was being committed, intel leaks every day. Pence was the backup plan. They want to basically have him unceremoniously walk out of office just like Nixon did. He brings up Nixon quite a bit. But he's Pence was supposed to basically fill the vacuum. And we learned something about Mike Pence, didn't we? Another, starts with a T, right? Traitor. They're everywhere. So Trump sticks it out and he declares and calls for the country to open up by Easter of 2020. Did the country open up? No. Open defiance of the commander in chief. So what triggers Directive 40? What triggers continuity of government? Certain scenarios where your entire government had been compromised. Directive 40 was conceived during the Cold War, thinking of a nuclear attack, dropping a nuke on Washington, D.C. And what do you do when most of your government's been taken out? That was the conception of it. If you understand our rigged election systems, that has occurred slowly and meticulously for 2 decades, at least on a systemic level. And when Obama came in, were we not demoralized? It was supposed to be the handoff. She was going to continue to demoralize us. Number two, we got to destabilize. We've been destabilized. Number three, there's a crisis. Bring it all about. That was COVID, by the way. And then normalization, which is get used to the psyop, get used to your brainwashing. So Trump had to counteract that. And he did it by putting on a giant red hat that said MAGA, which stands for what? Make America great again. To moralize. Everything he did was the opposite of the Bezanoff thesis. I will moralize you. You will stand and respect the flag. God's okay with us. We need to bring religion back into the country, he would say. Where there was destabilization, he would stabilize. Where there was crisis, he would solve it. And I thought about, well, what's the opposite of normalization? It's accountability. It's prosecution. It's a firing squad. And that's what we're waiting for, right? Because his two chief promises were what? I'm going to give you back your country, hand on the Bible, give you back your country, and we caught them all. Well, if you did, let's see it. I think this is the year that we see it. So the way that you're going to have to act is there's got to be a giant exposure event. We've seen clues here. He has asked the NSA and many of his intelligence agencies to classify information related to the elections, which means we're going to finally see stuff that we haven't seen before. We've heard today, you need to know that. The reason why you have the right idea about elections is because we, the people, have carried the day. And you're awake. There's no one that's going to put the toothpaste back in the bottle after what we have done together as we, the people. And that was necessary. Because if he's going to give us back our country, we have to be ready to receive it. So this is what I anticipate, and I'll shut up and take the questions. Something big's coming down the pipe. 30 to 60 days. It has to happen for the primary. And it has to be spectacular enough to where the president, at a bare minimum, can say, National Guard, I want you to count votes in Oregon, in New Mexico, Texas, not for the whole ballot. Not yet. It could, but I don't think we're ready for that. But the normal one. But at least two races, the federal ones. Federal races, House and Senate. And you can't count on the clerks, you can't count on the clerk that screwed you all over. You have your 8-day blackout. Next thing you know, the same people win. You can't risk that. Have the National Guard count two races. And I know those soldiers like to joke that they're not that smart, but you can count them too. Right? You can do that. Second thing is this. Once you see the disparate totals for Republicans in a federal race, and they compare it to the statewide ballot going through the mail, you're going to see a huge difference in your results. They find out that you're not a 50-50 country, that Portland's red, probably the business owners are too shy or too scared to speak the truth, and they're going to start demanding that the state ballot is counted the same way as the federal ballot. Now let's give them some help. Mail is half the problem. Those mail-in ballots go through a machine tabulator, a rig tabulator with rig software. Take your ballot here. Your ballot.
Well, there's 3 different systems used in Oregon. 36 different counties use different systems. But clear ballots in here, ESNS is here, and the others.
So Clear Ballot, ESNS, Unison, they're all built up on the software design. So it doesn't matter which one you use, they're all rigged. But the point is this, Oregonians didn't pay, technically he did, everyone pays for it if you're a taxpayer. But that the monies for those machines came from federal money allocated from the Help America Vote Act. And if Oregon secured that funding, which they did, only 50 states, ooh, they want that federal money. It comes with strings. So what happens when you show that there's fraud, waste, and abuse, just like they showed in the Twin Cities with Nick Shirley going around and find out there's no children in the daycares? What did Trump direct Scott Bessent to do? Stop disbursements. Stop dispersing federal money. So the fiscal year's coming up this summer, which would be before the general. What's going to happen? If Trump calls up Scott Bessent and says, okay, you guys can run your own elections if you want to. I don't know how you can afford it, because you're not going to have the money to service the contracts. And you're going to have a giant specter of fraud because of what they proved through a hand count. Now, I'm not telling you this is going to happen. I'm just telling you my legal mind on how to do this lawfully, by the book, constitutionally. It's one of, half dozen different ways that it could happen. But something has to happen. Either I'm right or I'm close to it, or we're all screwed. So there's other ways to spell. And it doesn't have to start with an F and then with an ED. It can start with an SC and then with an ED. When you drop the bomb, I'm sitting there going, oh. I dropped one the other night, solidarity, pure solidarity. I can't do it every night. Let me give you my spiritual encounter. I couldn't do it tonight. So I say all this to tell you, don't lose hope. The worst thing you can do is give up now. Some of you are angry, some of you are black-pilled, some of you are wondering, but you don't have the fate of the world resting on your shoulders. And Trump's not doing the job just to save America. He is a divinely appointed and anointed man for this season. So I wouldn't bet against him. So, all of these things I'm talking about, it's not just Trump. It's not just the military. It's millions of spirit-filled believers, many of which are in this room that have done their part to awaken people. Because I've thought about this a lot. Why is it during COVID? When I go to Thanksgiving, I'm sitting at a table. I didn't get the jab, but that person did. And he thinks I'm the idiot. As he's rubbing his chest because it hurts. Why is it that I think Donald Trump is a pretty awesome dude and they are losing their minds? It's because I was given a small, still voice whisper that said, this is the truth. And everyone in here, I probably guess, you had that small, still voice. So we need to add one more dimension to this conversation. No full circle.
Thank you.
Well, call for something to take place on May 17th.
Yeah. Yeah.
During his national prayer breakfast. Now, I may be wrong. I might be batshit crazy. I don't know, but it's all I got. I got my faith, but I've got skin in the game. I've tried everything I know. And I know you all have as well. Just don't give up. Don't be the person that says, I'm done, I quit. Because who knows, it could be tomorrow. Don't be the person that quits the day before there's victory. All right. God bless y'all, and we'll just do it.
Well, I was just wondering if Trump uses an executive order for the, for the freer citizenship, and all that to vote. Is that only for federal elections, or does that also cover state elections?
Okay, so the question is, if he issues an executive order for the Save America Act, is it just for federal or is it just for state? He could argue that it's for both under national security grounds, but he can expect legal challenges. So I think he should focus on just federal races, but yank the money. Yank the money for the machines. Because if you force the statewide ballot to be counted in a similar fashion, you guys are going to have absolute upheaval, but it's in a good way. I don't think we're going to have an election in November that's anything like what we're used to. I think we're going to need a timeout. We're going to have to circle the wagons. And I think if I'm right on Epstein, because people have prognosticated that 90% of the government's in it, then you're going to have vacancies. So, hear me now. I mean, I'm not one of these guys that's a hard R charger. If we retain the same uniparty in November through the primaries, I don't care, because 99% of them stabbed us in the back. So wouldn't it be better if we had a bunch of vacancies and all the MAGA Maha people got a short-term election, a special election, and we just start filling up the ranks? That would be miraculous. And it's happened even in California. I'm not saying Arnold Schwarzenegger's a good guy, but Gray Davis was recalled. Arnold announced on the Tonight Show, and 2 months later, 2 months of campaigning, he was the governor of the 9th largest economy in the world. So if it can happen for, the Terminator, maybe it can happen for us. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, sir.
Well, my question is, actually, most people can hear me even if I don't have a microphone, but my question was about, we've been under a psychological operation for quite a long time because the Smith-Mundt Act was repealed in 2012, which means all media outlets can actually be puppets of the government, telling them exactly what the government wants to tell them. And anybody that says otherwise will either be silenced or run out of business. So we need to reinstate the Smith-Mundt Act. And part of the psychological operation is very similar to the Milgram experience or the Stanford prisoner experiment, where a lot of people have given up hope because they've been browbeaten for the better part of a decade that there is no hope. If you buck the system, you are going to be S with an ED on the end. So, yeah, it seemed like there was going to be a question here, but I think I've forgotten what it was.
Let's do that. Guys, I'm not going to relinquish the mic. If we're going to get monologues that are phrasing, this is what I think, and then what do you think about that? That's what we're doing. A question, but I agree with you. I agree with you. Questions? Okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I've been doing this for 6 years. I don't mind. Here, you want?
I need both mics. Okay. I've never been to a press conference before, so I don't know how this works. Yeah, so my question would be, for us on the ground floor, people that are, we understand our fight is through the judicial system or winning elections or what, I don't know. Those are the two that I've seen so far in Oregon that are effective. What do you think the people on the ground floor that are actually trying to instill change, what should our focus be? Yeah, you got me.
Yeah. Okay. So I get this a lot, and it's so simple, and it might be underwhelming because it's completely predicated on courage. What Ben told you that he did, he said no to fraud. Start there. If you can't say no to corruption, say no to fraud, you're going to get sucked in. And they're trying to suck you in subtly with the perks that you might get as commissioner. They're going to make it really hard. It's like, like Satan showing Jesus, all of this can be yours. And it might be on a small scale. But as a commissioner, I don't know about Oregon, but in many places the county commission is the canvassing board. So at the end of an election, the clerk provides a canvassing report. They usually slap themselves on the back and say, oh, we did a great job. They accepted all the mail-in ballots, even after people stayed late, wouldn't you know, worked overtime to count ballots and kept showing up. And then usually it's a yes/no vote. And it may not be that year, but some version of that where there is a certifying body that says yes. And over the past 40 years, the corrupt tyrants have wanted to have their cake and eat it too, which is we want everyone to believe we've got a robust system where there's discretion and there's checks and balance until you opt to say no. And then they make a referral to the attorney general to get it investigated and you get prosecuted. Had the same question yesterday with a guy that's running for clerk down in Grants Pass. I said, look, I'm not asking you to be stupid or be loud about it. Be quiet, observe, document. We've got patrons that can help give you all the information you need to back you up, provide a spotlight. But the only thing that we really need you to do is stand and defy tyranny. And if you can do that honest, simple task, I'm going to stand and defy tyranny. That's how we could have solved this problem, years before having, Trump come in with a military plan of some kind. We just need canvassing board clerks say, I'm not certifying that black box. And there's legal grounds for that we can flesh out and articulate. But start easy. Just, look yourself in the mirror. If that day comes or when it comes, if you somehow get in,